With that.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for attending the webinar today. My name is Melissa Schwartz, and I'm the manager of the Education Department here at TrainingPeaks. And today we have a webinar presented by Gordo Byrn and Justin Dayer. They're going to be going through the business of coaching. So just a couple things to take care of before I hand it over. If you have a question as the gentlemen are going through their presentation, please enter it in the question box in your GoToMeeting screen. Myself and one other person will be answering those. If it's a TrainingPeaks question, we ask that you send it through our support channels. But if it's a question regarding the presentation, we'll be answering them and also holding them for a Q&A session at the end. Yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over.
Thanks. So what we wanted to do today is run you through some things that we've learned within our own business. And then that's Endurance Corner. And before we got Endurance Corner going, I've been coaching since 2000. And I wanted to touch on different things that I've learned across that time period. Before we get into that, a little bit on my background. My background was in finance and investing. And I did that for 10 years before I started doing triathlon. And when I started triathlon, I was in Hong Kong. And I got better really, really quickly. And that caught the attention of the people I was training with. And I started coaching really in my first season. So before I really knew anything at all, I was coaching people. So I've been coaching and burning for 12 years. I'm just going to hand it over to my partner, Justin. Maybe you tell a little bit how you got into coaching.
So I started triathlon in 2000 when I was a sophomore, or just going into my sophomore year in college. As far as coaching was concerned, I started a beginner's triathlon class in either 2001 or 2002. Can't remember. I did a couple spring semesters on campus. That would be my first sort of start in telling people how to do things.
Yep.
And I got USAT certification in 2004. And probably had my first one-on-one type of client around that time. Got into coaching more as a formalized whatever.
Yeah.
Started coaching more regularly when I started working with you late 2007.
Okay. And I think it's safe to say when we, my background when I started and when you started, it wasn't our main thing. So we came to it like most people do. You kind of come into it part-time at the beginning. Now, the first slide today is really about saving time and money. And one of the things when I start working with coaches or people in a business consulting role is generally we tend to focus on creating more time and trying to create more revenue. And one of the things I've found is initially you can be a lot more successful if you save time and get yourself focused. Both on the expenses and also in terms of your return per hour. So that tends to be where I start from. And I'm going to give you a lot of ideas on that. I'm going to be focusing mainly on time and money. But what I would emphasize is coaching is a business where you need to care. Athlete retention and the health of your business will be linked directly with not how ruthless you can be with your time and charging people money, but how much you care. And the people that I find that stay in coaching and that are successful in coaching, ultimately, they care. They really care about the athletes. And that's important because if you don't care, people will see through that very quickly. So I keep an eye on that. Now, personally, why bother? Why did I start Endurance Corner? First off, I wanted to help people. My previous career was in finance, and in finance, you pretty much help yourself. You don't help others all that much. I was really interested in triathlon, and I was looking for something to do. I was based in Boulder, Colorado, and it struck me the opportunity was there. And then I wanted to learn. I had an opportunity to get together with our exercise physiologist, Alan Cousins, and it was an opportunity. I was still racing at a high level, and it was an opportunity for me to educate myself through the case studies with my athletes, but also working with some great coaches. Now, how'd that go? As you can see on the slide, we lost a lot of money. The bigger we got, the more money we lost. And the actual cash loss in the first 2 years was more than 100,000 US dollars, which was a lot of money to put into a business that wasn't generating any return. So I definitely learned a lot. Quite an expensive education. And at the bottom, you'll see in my day job, I found myself unemployed and with my daughter at the end of 2008, which is the lowest point there. So the reality was I had this great plan. We had a lot of people working with us. We were having fun and we were learning, but we weren't making any money. And I think for a lot of people, when they look at the early years of their business, it's pretty similar. Mine was a little more extreme. So what happened? What changed? Well, a key thing that changed is I brought Justin in as a partner, so I got a fresh look at what I was doing and how I was running things. And that's often something that if things aren't working, bringing somebody in from the outside to have a look at your business and just say, hey, ask you some questions. Well, why are we doing it this way? Why are you allowing the business to lose money can be very helpful. You want to chat a bit about the camp business and how we turned that around?
I think, initially I met Gordo through the old Epic Camp days in Hawaii in 2004. And going way back before then, I was kind of in the community that he had on his forum and all that kind of stuff. So we had always sort of known one another. And then when I moved to Boulder full time, he asked me if I was interested in working with Endurance Corner, and eventually sort of made that transition. And one of the things that they already had in place were these camps that were going to happen, I think, within 3 or 4 months of me joining. So they were already collecting revenue and already sort of setting things ready to go, but at the same time, they weren't really looking at any of the numbers. It was like, hey, maybe this will work, maybe it's not, but there wasn't really a concrete idea of what you want to get out of it. And it may have been initially that it's fun to go do camps, and that's great, but if he's looking at a business that's losing money, that's not fun either. So I actually looked at the time that I spent as a camp counselor through college and applied some of the same ideas. So initially to create a good product was to try to create a great camp and then look at, okay, so what's the cost that's going to go into that, and then we need to make sure that we're taking in enough revenue that it makes it worth our while. And I think we managed to do that just by making it more real.
Yeah. And I think probably the most powerful thing we did is something that when I ask a lot of coaches, they don't have, and that's we just started by making a budget. And it's like, all right, well, what's our revenue going to be? What are our expenses? Let's have a look at it, and let's make sure that at a minimum we're not going to be losing money here. So the act of making the budget got us focused on expenses. The other thing is we realized that although it's fun to train, we could train at home. So we were in this to make a profit. We wanted to deliver a good product but make money off of it. And the visibility on the financials was clear. And I think at the very beginning, we didn't really have any financial goals. We didn't sort of say, well, we want to go in and make X dollars. It was like, we're not going to lose money here. We need to make something. And then from there, we progressed towards having financial targets that we use now in our camps.
And I think it's good, too, like with camps that come about. I mean, you always have a fixed overhead that pretty much won't go away.
Yeah.
And then, whether that's bringing coaches in and certain things. And then there's the exponential costs of number of hotel rooms, meals, and that sort of thing that get passed along. So learning what the nice number of, either say coaches to athletes or what it is that you want to have, there is a sweet spot for where you can really get a nice return, whether, you're taking in 3, 4, 5 more athletes, but also capping yourself at a point where the camps themselves retain a high level of quality and that you all get enough one-on-one time with the athletes you're working with.
And if we step back and we think about the goals I had when I started Endurance Corner, there was not one financial goal there. So the question I would ask everybody that's listening is, take some time, write down exactly what your financial goal is for your business. That's the starting point. And that was something that if I had done it before, I could have saved myself a lot of money. And so now, when I manage my time, I know very clearly what my time is worth to me, and I have a clear financial goal. Now, I'm going to share my financial goal with you, but my experience is there's a wide range of financial goals, and the key is not having the right goal, but the key is having the goal that's right for you. In other words, you need to know why you're in it. You need to make that visible to yourself, and you have to be true to that goal in the decisions you make about your time and what you're charging people within your business. And here's an example. So my goal when we turned the business around, was a $50,000 net cash contribution to my family every year. So $50,000 comes out of the business and goes to my family. It doesn't go to my bank account, it goes to the family's bank account. And it's very clear. And the way I put discipline on myself for that is my wife was the one that took the money out, and she took it for the family's account, for running the family's business. Now that was my goal, and we achieved that very quickly. You see on that turnaround. We achieved that in the first year. Other goals that people have had, and just to give you some ideas, some folks just want to generate $60,000 worth of revenue that they can apply to triathlon. So basically they want to fund their triathlon lifestyle by triathlon coaching. Other people might be coaching because it's a part-time job and their spouse doesn't see the money. That's been an example. So it's their own money, their own profit. It's not going to go into the family, but the money they make from coaching will be for their own life. Some folks are in it just to get paid to train. They don't really care how much they make, but the idea is I'm going to train alongside my athletes and I'm getting paid to train. It's, again, a lifestyle-oriented thing. All of these are great reasons. The key thing is knowing what your reason is, because what it's going to do is it's going to color everything about what makes sense for the strategy of your business. So that's the what, the goal. And by the way, the guy in the picture is Stephen Covey. And a lot of what I applied and what actually worked with Endurance Corner comes from the 7 habits. So what I'm talking about right now is start with the end in mind, which is one of his key sayings. Actually, he died this summer in a cycling accident in his late 70s. Yeah, it was a tragic accident. So that's kind of what. What's the goal? Who? The next thing to consider, and you know, a lot of folks are like, well, who's going to hire me to coach? And what I say is, start by thinking, well, who benefits the most from your advice? Who do you have a rapport with? Who are the people that respond to you as an individual? I mean, for me, it was obvious. I came from a finance background. I was a fast amateur quite quickly, and then I was a medium fast elite, and ultimately a kind of fast, pretty fast elite, but I wasn't a top elite. So it was high achievers with flexible schedules and financial resources. And they were focusing on middle to long distance to ultra distance. Those people are the key people that really who I could add value to. The other thing I would ask is if you're in the coaching business and you're unsure of it, ask your athletes, what is the most valuable thing I do for you? I've been amazed. Every time I ask that question to people, I'm surprised because sometimes I think I'm adding value in an area that's not necessarily important to them. And you can learn a lot from speaking to and interviewing your own athletes because they'll know you and your style the best. The next point there is the how, the price. And why would somebody pay you to coach them? And that kind of comes back to knowing who that you're going to be working for. The sort of people that I've done well with have jobs where they really value their time. So to the extent that I can save them time thinking about their training, analyzing their training, and teach them how to learn quicker, there's value there for them. Other folks may have resources and they want somebody to hang out with. They do want somebody to train with and talk to, and it's more a relationship coach and a relationship they're looking for. And making sure you match that up, I think, will help you figure out what the right price point is for you. I've charged widely different prices per month in my background, and I don't think there's any right answer. I think being clear to people about what your expectations are and getting from the athlete what their expectations are is very important in the relationship. Jay, you got anything on that pricing?
No, I think I've found a similar situation with the people that I've worked with. Key thing for me is people who need peace of mind and value their time, and they pay me to help them kind of relax and just execute what they need to execute within the week. And in some cases, that can be very, very simple for them. But the fact that they know that I'm available when need be and know that things are going to get delivered in a timely manner, that's what they value. That seems to work.
Now, filters. The key, there's most of us, in triathlon particularly, it's an interesting demographic to coaches because most of the coaches, the majority, have another job, they like to train, and they're coaching. So they've got three things that they're balancing. So time management becomes critical for most of the coaches, I'd say. And what I've found is to create filters. And what I mean by filters is if you know the sort of person that you're going to work well with, you can create certain questions to filter those people out. So an example might be, do you have a power meter or not? That tells you whether the person spends money on equipment or whether they value technology. If you're a train-by-feel coach, not a big deal. But one of the questions I ask everybody that's thinking about working with me is, do you have a power meter? And if you don't, would you buy one? Next question, do you attend training camps? Would you attend a camp with me? Similar filtering question. In other words, would you spend money to go train? And would you value coming to train alongside your coach? Very quick filter with those two questions. It can tell you a lot about somebody's background. Next question, talk to me about your training week and how much control you have over your schedule. I work with people that have high expectations on themselves in terms of performance. To get that result, it helps if they have control over their schedule. So because I know who I want to work with and how I like to work, through a series of about 5 questions, I can very quickly figure out if it's not going to work. And then if it's not going to work, it's better for everybody. You can just figure that out quite quickly. And that's an important thing to do with filtering in terms of somebody that comes in. The other thing that I would recommend you do is figure out what your time is worth to you. And what I mean by that is what's the net amount you want to make per hour, per day, and per week out of the things in your life that you're doing for financial return. Now, obviously, it's not all about financial return, as I said at the beginning, but you need to be clear because if there's demand for your services, you're going to face more demand than you have time, and you're going to have to make decisions. And the way you'll make decisions is by filtering these different opportunities. And part of having the freedom to direct your life is having the time to control your week. And with me, I do it by hour, day, week. And for the days and the weeks, it depends whether or not I'm at home or whether I'm traveling. If I'm traveling, I need to make a lot more money than if I'm at home because I got 3 kids now and it's really stressful on the house. So there needs to be some compensation for that. So my filters are, if I'm going away, $1,000 a day and $5,000 a week. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but as a result I don't travel much. But when I do travel, everybody in my house knows it's worth it for the family. And so there's comfort at my home life, and it's worth it for me and for the business. In terms of my coaching business sitting at my desk, I'm shooting to make $100 net per hour. Now there's some clear implications of that. It probably means it's going to be very difficult for me to work unless I'm super efficient. It's going to be difficult for me to have long-term relationships with people that value their time significantly less than that, unless it's just a consulting relationship in terms of they're going to put together a bunch of questions, they're going to hit me really hard for a couple hours and get the information they want. Most people that are too busy don't know what their filters are, those financial filters, I've found. So I ask the question, what do you want to make and how do you value yourself? And there's no answer. So if you don't know the answer to that question, what I would recommend you do is figure out what you're actually making right now, which is the key thing to do. And what you do by that is just track all the time you spend in a week connected to coaching, whether it's cycle coaching, run coaching, triathlon coaching, whatever your particular sport is. Figure out how you're spending that week. And I would also include all the stuff that you do that's sort of quasi-related to it. So internet surfing, chat forums, reading articles, all that time. Get it down in a week. And then look at the net cash that your business generated for your family over the last year. So you'll have your hours per week, multiply that by, say, 50, round number, divide it by the net cash, and you're going to get your contribution per hour. It may be less than you realize. With most people, the first time they do that exercise, they're shocked at what their actual cash return is from the business. And that shock gives them an opportunity to sort of say, all right, well, I'm going to establish some filters, and I'm going to knock out some of this low return stuff that's not really doing much for my business. So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about time and managing that time. Because I talked about the hour, the day, the week. There are exceptions to that. I mean, I'm not getting paid to be here, for an example. So why would we come here? Oftentimes there are things that you want to do for education, to spread the word, to help people that make sense. And I would say once you're meeting your key financial goals, then it's time to do that. When you're under pressure and you're not meeting your goals, I would say it's generally you want to focus on cutting things down until you get to a profitable core of your business and a profitable core of your week, and then you can look to expand out of there. The other thing, if you've been a coach for a long time, it's important to consider what the average length of relationship is within your business. It's a good number to know. It varies. I've heard some coaches say it's 11 months. Some coaches would say maybe it's 2 or 3 seasons. But generally, the coaching relationships are temporary. And if you're going to do something pro bono or because you feel like it, I would encourage you to put that time into your family first and then into your close friends second, rather than into your business. Keep your business focused on business. Family and friends are going to be with you for very long time horizons. And also you get those little freebies. If you put it into a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, speaking from experience, my own kids, if I put an afternoon into my daughter, I get a really big return, much bigger return than doing something for minimum wage in a coaching environment. The final point there is NNT, and that's shorthand for nice, no thanks. Learning how to say no in a kind manner to people is a key thing, particularly if you feel like you're overwhelmed in your week. Practice saying no to these low return opportunities in a kind way. And if you can't say no, just say not yet. That's how I get people started. So if you're struggling to say no, say, hey, that's a fantastic idea. I'd really like to do that opportunity, just not yet. And let's write it down, and I'll come back to you when I have time to do it. And then you don't have to say no. You can just say not yet. Anything to add there?
No, you're going into the. I was going to speak when you go into the breakdown of the.
Yeah. This is okay. So the next slide is repeat your week. And that's Chrissy there. She comes and talks at our camps whenever we can get her. And that's something, that's something that came through loud and clear when she came and talked. So as coaches, I think one of the things we tell our athletes is, they say, well, how do I get better? And we say, do the plan. Just do the plan. Stick to the plan. Be consistent. Do work over time, and you'll get returns. I found business is very similar. And I've come to a structure in my own week that works well for me. And one of the things I've found is that I dedicate a task to a day of the week. So these little categories, that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's just how I organize it. So Monday is about planning, and it's what I call dragging boxes on TrainingPeaks, dragging them across, or and it's TrainingPeaks oriented. So I do the planning associated with coaching, and I find that to be a bit draining, and so I have a fixed amount of time, and if I get it done quicker, then that's great. I can go goof off or read a book or do something else. But I know on Monday I got to get that done and have that organized. What that means is there's not a lot of starting and stopping. One of the things you're going to find if you're building plans and you're doing a lot of start and stop and you don't have a library and you're not using templates, you're wasting a tremendous amount of time. And your athletes, your clients, your customers, whatever you're calling them, if it takes you 5 minutes to make a plan or it takes you 5 hours to make a plan, they don't care. They care about the quality of the plan, but even more than that, they care about the quality of the interaction, the fact that the plan is delivered timely, that they're improving, and that you're answering their questions and helping them achieve their goals. The fact that you spent 5 hours dragging boxes on TrainingPeaks adds no particular value. And so it's, as a goal, when I work with people, I'd say become aware of how long it takes you to build a training plan. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to help you cut that time in half. And you can do that really easily with the tools that they have on TrainingPeaks, particularly the templates in the libraries. The shortest blocks, when I build out, I try and build at least 6-week blocks, so I have a theme for 6 weeks. That's how I like to think. Sometimes I'll build shorter, but in my training plan library, I have blocks that go from 3 weeks to 45 weeks, and I've got a ton of different templates that I can apply. So I can lay a template down very quickly, tweak it, and then customize it. So the time I spend is on customization. It's not on recreating a template every time. So that's planning. The Tuesday is review day. Key workouts, thinking about key workouts that are coming up, and also reviewing key workouts that have happened, answering questions about workouts, giving athletes feedback there. Wednesday, I operate on Inbox Zero. If you just Google Inbox Zero, you can find out what that means. But basically, I was completely overwhelmed with email a couple of years ago, and I had to change the way I operated. And so I operate with Inbox Zero. So anything that I can deal with quickly, I just deal with it, like it's a text. So you get a really quick reply. Anything that requires thinking just goes into a folder called Action. And on Wednesday, I clear out my Action folder. So I'm not constantly getting interrupted and having conversations via email. If I'm going to have a conversation, I'm going to do it on Friday, which is the Connect Day. And I would encourage people, if there's folks that you're going to speak to every week, just create a slot and use the same slot every single week. Thursday is Market. That's marketing. I write a lot of articles, probably over 100 articles a year. Writing is my best medium. Somebody else's best medium might be video. And you can, if you do a YouTube clip that actually adds value to people, and you just do one every Thursday for 5 years, you've got a great library that can use. The reason I started writing articles was my athletes kept asking me the same questions, and I wanted to save myself some time. So rather than just write an email, I'd say, great question, I'm going to write an article that'll answer your question. So a lot of my articles now are coming from case studies within athletes or themes that continue appearing year to year. So there's your week. The benefit of this is if you do one thing continuously for a morning, there's no interruptions, you're very efficient, you learn to get it done. And if you try and do a little bit of all 5 things on each day, you're going to find that your productivity is much lower. It's going to be, you're probably at least twice as productive by clustering it and doing batch processing. 4-Hour Work Week talks quite a bit about using batch processing. And that's another book that I would recommend, easy read. I mean, I work a lot more than 4 hours a week, but the principles that Ferris shares in that book are quite useful.
Well, a couple days ago on Endurance Corner, I wrote an article about, it's called Embracing the Off, and I talked about formalizing time where I wasn't productive in any way, because I felt that helped me in other areas. But I've always had a lot of flexibility in what I do. So for me, that's maintaining life as maintaining one job as a professional triathlete, maintaining another job as Endurance Corner. And so you can always sort of be doing something all the time if you don't learn to set aside specific times. So you can always be checking email, you can always be tinkering with the plan, you can always be looking this, that, and the other. So I created just a few simple little rules. First of all is that certain days are set aside for certain things. If it's a training day, then that's the #1 priority on the day. And I have a rule that training starts by 9. And that doesn't sound like much, but it always kept me from getting caught up in anything. If I got online and started looking at emails and all these types of things, I have a time period set aside where I do all the training plans, I do all the email, all these types of things. So when it's 8:30, I got to go. You know, I have to be ready. And at the same time, setting aside time for me to be completely off, because I think when you have a job that allows you to work any time of day, you can get caught up in that, and then you can get really run down and less efficient. So I have a rule from Saturday at 9 a.m. to Sunday at 9 a.m. I don't train or work at all. It's completely off. And I try to actually not do anything, like no errands, anything like that. You know, with having a job where you're potentially self-employed, you have flexibility to work anywhere at any time. Make sure that you know when and where you want to do things so that you can do them the most effectively when you decide to do them.
I like it. The other thing, so this is repeat your week, but as Justin said, you can get caught up in repeating that week forever and ever and ever, and it can kind of overwhelm your life. There's a guy I know in Boulder that has a very successful coaching business, and I asked him the last time he was offline, and he said it was the day before he launched his coaching business. And so he's constantly online. Now, some people can handle that. Myself, I find it drains me. So once you figure out the week structure that works for you, similar to creating an annual training plan for your athlete, I would create an annual training plan for your life. And I would block out weeks, not days, weeks, for the following categories. Yourself, and for me, that's a training camp where I go as an athlete. Family, that's family vacation where I don't have an ulterior agenda to do training or do a race or check my email or do coaching. It's a dedicated slot where I'm going to do family and kids. Learning is another one where you're going to improve your ability, either learn about business or your sport or another sport, something. So generally those are sort of conferences and clinics, and symposiums. And the other thing is long-term projects. You know, Endurance Corner didn't really kick off until I was unemployed, and I was forced to do something which was a long-term project, which was get the site up and running and the coaching engine and that, until I had a crisis. Most of us won't change until we have a crisis, but I think if you block out weeks where you're going to focus on nothing but this long-term project, and a great example is I've written a couple books. A book kind of never gets done unless you block out. My first book, I had to block out a month to get it done. Business opportunities, anything that you think is a strategic project that you want to get done, you'll need to block that out and ideally step out of your normal life. I tend to go away for training camps and go away when I need to do focused writing and focused business. Okay, so that's some stuff on time, on the week. Let's talk a little bit about the decision that I've had to make before, which is make or buy. And in the little graphic that I put there, I think the guy in front of the dollar sign is actually sort of thinking, but if you pretend he's got his palm on his face, like, oh my God, I got to pay all this money, it really reflects how I feel sometimes when you have to pay for something, pay for knowledge. And my advice would be don't, a lot of people are reluctant to pay big money to learn from the best. And in my athletic career, I studied under some of the best athletes and best coaches. And I spent a lot of money doing that. But as a result, I picked up things that other people either weren't willing to learn or it took them longer to learn. Similar thing in business. So I would say if it costs you a bit of money to go study from somebody that really knows their stuff and knows exactly how to achieve what you want to achieve, go to that person. Go to the teacher. Take some formal instruction. Don't be cheap in terms of knowledge and expertise. The other thing is figure out it's important to know what your goal is in business because and the money you're seeking to make, because it'll dictate whether or not you want to be part of a team or kind of a lone wolf. If you look at the different models in the coaching industry, there's sort of a lone wolf coach. It's on their own. And there's the businesses. You're part of a team. And the team, CTS comes to mind. Training Bible Coaching, Joe's involved in that. Joe Friel got me started in coaching. Here in Boulder, E3 Multisport. As a junior coach or as a new coach, it can cost you a lot of money to be part of these networks in terms of the percentage of revenue that you spend. But, if ultimately your goal is to create the next CTS, there's probably no better experience than to work in CTS, study how they operate. It'd be a lot cheaper than spending $100 grand trying to start your own business up like I did. And so there can be, if you're playing a long game in coaching, working with other people, studying other business models can make a lot of sense. Our approach, and maybe I'll hand over to Jay here, just to talk a little bit about, because we've come at it slightly differently.
Endurance Corner kind of didn't necessarily, as we evolved over the course of 5 years, sort of looking at where we are and where we're going, we kind of came to the idea that our best purpose is to help coaches grow and solidify the relationships that they have with their athletes. So we're not really there to tell coaches how to coach, tell them how to necessarily schedule, do anything like that. That's sort of independent. So everyone's an independent coach with however many clients that they want to have, and they can charge on a spectrum that they want to charge. But we want to put together things like a website that has a strong readership for you to post your articles, help with your marketing, get as much word out as you personally want to get out. Post a forum where there's interaction on the website between a lot of experts, and when we all come together, we can answer questions for each other sometimes, as opposed to you being the only one that people hear from. Because sometimes it's nice when a coach has been telling you something, and there's a whole bunch of other people that are telling you the same thing. So
and on that network, I think that's one of the big things about being part of a network. When I started, it was really valuable for me to be part of Joe Friel's network. The reason being is, with these experienced coaches, if you've only been coaching for a couple of years, it's impossible for you to learn enough to ever catch up. And we've got people on our team that went to med school. I won't be going to med school. We've got people that have been studying exercise physiology for 20 years. And to recreate that type of knowledge would take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And we'd never be as good as the people on our team that are the best at it.
No, having access to people and being associated with them is it grows your knowledge capabilities,
Mhm.
what you have to offer people. You know, you don't know everything about cardiology, but Dr. Cresswell is on the forum, then you have that available for people to hear from.
Yeah, and I like it because it also saves time. So when a topic comes up that I kind of know, but somebody else really knows, it's an instant response for them, but it could be me having to rack my brains for a while. And one of the things we do with the athlete forum and our team forum is we let all of us benefit by bringing the experts together. Now, again, because we're not in this necessarily to make a ton of money, we take a very small, we run it more like a, what would it be, like a real estate association almost. In other words, we're pooling in terms of admin.
Well, we try to offer something to people that would save them time.
Yeah.
And we take a percentage based on that. So whether it's client invoicing, you know, hosting the website where their credentials and their articles can be hosted, they don't have to host that themselves.
Mhm.
Hosting a forum that they don't have to host. We also do sort of profit sharing based on the camps and the people that kick in. So they have a revenue source and an incentive to send people to the camps. So we both make money back and forth. So there's a service that they get in return for kicking in, as opposed to them wondering where it is that their money's going.
And that's it for the coaches that are listening and they're running their own coaching business. One of the challenges that I've seen in the coaching industry is that it's really tough to maintain your stars in a network. And what I mean is, if your business model is you're taking 30 to 40% of sales, as soon as an athlete, as soon as a coach has an independent source of athlete, they have a huge financial incentive to break away from the network. And that's something that we really wanted to avoid with Endurance Corner. We wanted to make the thing stable for the long term and keep everybody together. So our take is very small, 12.5% of sales. And that is, I mean, it's a fraction of most of the other business models. But what we believe the result of that will be we're going to have a very stable business in terms of relationships, and we've set up a structure that will work for everybody long term. So it works for somebody who just wants to work part-time, it works for somebody that wants to work full-time. And like Justin said, the people within the network can work as much as they want. So whatever model you have right now, I think it's worth considering what are the financial incentives for the types of coaches that you want to be working with long term, and to make sure that there isn't a big financial incentive to leave, because otherwise your coaches might hang in for a couple of years because you got them started and they appreciate that, but the best coaches will ultimately leave, and you want to keep the best people in the business to have the strength of the business. Okay, so talk a little bit about seminars. Something I did, I came to triathlon and I really knew nothing about swimming. I didn't even know how to swim. So I used to go to the ASCA World Clinic each year. So I took formal instruction in the weakest area of my coaching portfolio, and I would recommend that to you. I didn't, some people are great at networking. I'm not all that good at networking. The key thing for me was really knowledge. And one of the things I did when I went to these clinics and seminars, I would write up my notes from all the presentations I went to. So I would share that knowledge with people. And also I learned by writing things out. And so it was a way for me to reinforce what I was learning. Interviews. Everybody loves talking about themselves and their successes. So if you can find a role, or even if you just have a blog, you'd be amazed at how people will educate you about their business, about what works, what doesn't work on a one-on-one setting. If you can go to a training camp and chat with a coach, people are kind of reluctant about financial stuff. I mean, if you ask them point blank. But if you get them going and they're excited, they'll explain kind of the models. You'll be able to learn quite a bit. A surprising amount you can learn from just interviews with people, formal, informal, just hanging out with them. Yourself, pay attention to what works and what doesn't work. So it was pretty uncomfortable for me to do the accounts and see how much money I was losing in 2008, but I didn't avoid it. I made it visible to myself, and making things in terms of your relationship with time, your relationship with money, making that visible and then addressing that is a great way to drive action. The other thing you can do is make commitments. So it was, I told my wife the cash I was going to generate. She was going to take that cash out of the business, and I set myself up so it was really difficult for me to have an out. If you're working on your own, that can be a great thing to do. And the other thing is I kept the cash tight on the bank account because I was having trouble managing my expenses. If I got the money out of the business, I would have to just deal with it and wait. And it kept me from spending money that was in the bank account, which I think can be a challenge for a lot of us. We see that bank balance and we assume it's profit, but it's not profit until you get it out of the business. And then the final point, remember to do. It's easy to sit and read, the E-Myth and all these other books, to make notes, to go to conferences, to draw plans. But ultimately, action is going to be what changes, your financial position. So remember to take action, and I would say keep it simple. Simple action. So choose 2, maybe 3 points, 3 changes that you're going to make, and just focus on one of those changes until it gets done. So for me, for instance, the first thing that I did was I wanted to get my library onto TrainingPeaks. And so when I had spare time, I got my library onto TrainingPeaks, and I set a deadline for myself. Next, I wanted to get a 45-week Ironman model onto TrainingPeaks, and I got that done. Now, I didn't even do it myself. Ultimately, I had to write the plan out, and I had to hire somebody to get it into TrainingPeaks for me. But those deadlines and getting those things done are what stimulated, what made the changes and freed up my time. And those are the key points I wanted to touch on. Do you have anything else that you want to? No? Okay. I got a couple more slides, but I think I've covered everything. I mean, the final slide, if you skip forward to that one where I'm crossing the line in Brazil, that's on. I got my little hands up from in yellow. That's one. The little quote there, I don't know if you can see it, but I would say the quote says to know but not to do is not to know. We hold ourselves up as models to our athletes. And one of the things that I think is important, if you want to work with high-quality people, high-quality business people in particular, is you need to have those same standards on your business life that you would hold your athletes to in their athletic life. So hopefully I've given you a couple things that made sense. And I would say write down the points that make sense and get it done. Choose one point and stick with that point. Because these changes and building a successful business that meets your needs for return on time, it's just a case of figuring out what that is and then just sticking with it and learning how to, that nice no thanks. Okay. Did we get questions through?
Yeah, we've got a good amount of questions, so we'll see how much we have time for. And before I dig into the questions, I just want to bring up 2 things that are TrainingPeaks related. Number one, TrainingPeaks is doing a survey on the business of endurance coaching. So it's not just for our TrainingPeaks coaches. We're sending this out to as many coaches as we can, as possible throughout the world. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't filled this out yet, to please do so. We're going to make the findings of this report available for everybody in probably about another month. The URL for that survey is in the chat box. And then also, I just want to bring up our TrainingPeaks certification program. So this is a really great way for you can participate in our athlete match program. So a good way to start building some client base. And there are also some other advantages of being a TrainingPeaks certified coach. So if you're interested in that, we also have the link in the chat box. So take a look at that as well. So now that we've got those out of the way, we do have a couple of questions. The first one is regarding bringing on another coach to your business. How do you expand a coaching business once your financial goals have been met?
Okay. Well, why bring on another coach would be my first question. There are some clear benefits. I mean, a big benefit to me to being part of the network is it reduces my administration costs. So my fixed costs that Justin talked about, the website, my accounting, my bookkeeping, all the stuff that I would have to run if I was a lone wolf coach are spread across an entire network when you bring on a network. So that can make sense. The sort of, if it's one coach and you're bringing on another coach, if it's just the two of you, not clear to me why that makes sense. Just having seen people do it, I actually think it might make more sense if you've got a stable coaching business to look at who it would make sense for you to partner with your own business, rather than bringing on, because a lot of folks approach it, oh, I'm going to bring on junior coaches, and it's all going to, I'm going to make more money that way.
Yeah, I mean, like at Endurance Corner, we've had some people that don't really have coaching background get into coaching, and we sort of say that's not where we come in. We tend to come in more as a partnership or like a trade agreement, whatever, some sort of community that we're bringing in, because a lot of people, they have their coaching businesses up and running to some degree, and either they want help managing it or growing it somewhat.
Yeah.
It's not really, I want to get into it, period.
Yeah.
So that's where we found that we work. So no one's really coming to us very cold. They're already fairly experienced, and we consult with one another, and it's usually completely unanimous, no questions asked, that we agree that somebody is high quality, want to bring them in on board.
Now, in terms of, and a lot of times that person is looking to expand with a new coach, if it's a business decision, you're probably going to make more money by adding an athlete than adding a coach, I would say. I mean, when I run the numbers, that coach doesn't necessarily generate enough income relative to the time that it's going to take to bring that coach on. So that would be my advice there. So how you go about it, I would say, figure out what the goal is and what the benefit of bringing on the coach is, and then figure out what the price is for the amount of time it's going to take to bring on. And then understand that if you're taking too much from that coach, you're going to train them up, and then ultimately they're probably going to leave. So don't take it personally. Same thing with your athletes. I mean, athletes will come and go. Try not to take that personally as well. Would be my advice. Yep.
Great, thanks. Another one is, what are your top 2 challenges with building and maintaining a coaching business?
Let's see. On my own, yeah, okay, I got one. Keeping it fresh. Yeah, because I've been doing it for a long time, and that's something that, that's a great question. Because I keep racing, because one of the challenges is if you stop racing, you're going to forget what it's like for the people you're working with. I mean, now I've got 3 kids. And to be honest, I have no idea how you can, I mean, the babies and preschoolers, I got no idea how you can do a fast Ironman with 3 little kids in the house. It just blows me away how people can get stuff done. I've always gotten stuff done by being really focused and compartmentalizing. So I would say the number 1 challenge is keeping it fresh. Second challenge is understanding what it's like for the people that you're working with. And I think racing helps with that. I changed sports this past year just to keep it fresh. Went to mountain biking. I got my Leadville shirt on right now. Did the 100-miler. And I think that can, try new things as a coach. You'll learn, you're going to, here we go, we're going to snap. I guess we're going to tweet it up. Yeah. So you're gonna learn new things, and you're gonna learn. If you go to a new sport, you'll learn new things that'll bring knowledge into your coaching business. So keep learning, keep it fresh, and keep racing. Don't stop racing, even if it's 5Ks or things like that. I think it's a wonderful thing. What do you got?
I think one of the challenges that I've talked about just earlier is knowing when to turn it off.
Turn it off, absolutely.
So because of the nature of the flexibility, I think it becomes very easy to have a BlackBerry in front of you and just put out fires constantly. And not only that, people are going to start to expect that. Like they're going to expect a 5-minute return on every email they send you. So, which may not be very reasonable. So I think just knowing, okay, I'm going to set aside these times for, I mean, you probably got into coaching because you enjoy exercise. So, you know, don't forget that. Don't forget what makes you happy. And so,
remember why you started.
Yeah, I mean, get out there and get your exercise. And, you know, make yourself happy. You'll make everybody else happy, and you'll be a better coach. Or, you know, you'll be better at what you do.
Great. Another question, do you think it's beneficial for new coaches to have a mentor for both coaching and business mentor? And if so, how do you suggest going about finding one?
Absolutely. You're going to have to pay for it if it's somebody decent. And if it's not somebody decent, well, you're wasting your time. That would be, so I've paid a lot of money. You know, Joe and I have had financial relationships in various forms over a number of years. And it's worked really well for me. You got to pay attention. You got to ask questions of your mentor. So yeah, I have coaches that pay me to coach them on their business to apply what we've been talking about here. And so that would be, you get what you pay for. It's similar just from the athlete point of view too. When working with a coach, generally speaking, you're going to get what you pay for. And if things are out of balance, then it's not going to be sustainable. So yeah, mentors are great. The best mentoring relationships for me have been when I was working with the mentor on a project basis. So in other words, we were my coaching mentors. I was the project. They were coaching me. I was learning how to coach myself with the mentor. My coaching business mentors, I was working within their business and watching how they operated, how they made decisions, and asking them questions. Those, my business mentors that had nothing to do with athletics, we were doing transactions and deals. It was effectively case studies. So we weren't sort of sitting in a room and talking strategy. It was all real, and it was all case study driven. And I spent a lot of one-on-one time with them. So when I work with people, it's kind of, you know, how are we going to get the one-on-one time? If they're not living in the same place as me, it's going to be, you know, we're going to be talking on the phone every week. We're going to put together an action plan, timetable. We're going to work through that timetable. And generally speaking, I find you can get a lot done in 13 weeks if the person has the time and you're willing to hit it and hit it hard. That'll be the highest return from that mentoring relationship. After that, it's diminishing returns, and it's really up to the person to decide whether they want to continue.
Great. Thanks. Well, it looks like that's all we have time for today. Thank you both for coming in. It's always nice to have you guys here in our conference room when we do webinars.
I know. We like coming here.
Yeah. So we appreciate it. We will have this webinar recorded, so if you guys want to watch it again or if you want to pass it along to some other people, we'll be sending the YouTube link out for the recording probably in the next day. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.